Derrick Henry goes 1.7. See, that's a good example of a player that should get pushed up because of the half PPR format. He doesn't catch passes, but he is a great running back. And so he's almost not dinged for his lack of pass catching. I won't even say prowess. It's just that the teams he's been on has never really used it out of him. I can remember when he was with the Titans, I used to, when I'd have Derrick Henry on my team, especially for fantasy, I would watch and I'd be like, just give him a screen. He'll go 60 yards. And like, it's a whole thing where he's got to get into space. He's got to catch it. He's got to not drop it. But once he gets ahead of steam, if they can find him the space, Derrick Henry's off to the races. Nobody wants to tackle him in the open field. So I feel like they should give him one screen per quarter, at least every single game, and you just don't see it very much. But that's why you see Henry up to the 7 here. McCaffrey goes 9, Genty 10. Yeah, the running backs definitely feel more promising and prevalent in a half PPR format where the reward for receptions isn't nearly as high. So we're seeing, frankly, quite a few running backs off the board. Bauer's still going in a pretty similar spot there to the 2 point, what is that, the 2.6, 2.5 to team 8. But otherwise, we get Taylor going earlier than we normally see. Jacobs certainly earlier than we normally see. It'll be interesting. The lineups are the same. It's 3 wide receivers, a flex, a tight end, 2 running backs, and a quarterback. But your reward for locking up elite wide receivers is not quite as strong. And so how does that change the way that people approach it? You know, a name like Drake London would probably already be gone normally. When receptions are worth less, do you then pivot to quarterback sooner? Is that something that we might see tonight? It isn't. Chase Brown goes at the 2.10. I would have taken him in half PPR at the 2.11, so it's a good pick. But I think when we do consider the relative value of quarterbacks, I think quarterback values go up, especially the elite ones. If you're just punting the position, it doesn't really make a difference. So Josh Allen, strong consideration for me here. The running backs would be James Cook, Breece Hall. You know, A.J. Brown, but we're just taking Josh Allen. I know it auto-picked me, but that's who I wanted. I put him in the queue, and I was ready. And maybe one of these receivers makes it back to me. I don't think the dad starts with 3 wide receivers in a row. It's not PPR. It's half PPR, so we'll see what he does. But, yeah, give me Josh Allen, and let's try to build one of those elite QB teams. He goes James Cook, and I wouldn't have taken Cook and Allen, so I like that he picked him because it leaves the board very open to what I could potentially look to do. We'll see what the strategy is that I deploy, but it ain't going to be waiting on quarterback. Give me Josh Allen. I think I have the best quarterback in the league for fantasy. Omarion Hampton, we are used to seeing him at the back half of the third. He goes 3.1. So after the dad picked up the number 1 receiver in fantasy football, he went with 2 straight running backs, which is interesting because normally you might get a Chase Brown or a Kyron Williams at that slot. Didn't happen here. I'm on the clock and I'm deep into it. You know, if you are going to give me A.J. Brown in the third, I think I will take him. And he's not a guy that always gets a ton of volume. His value should be big plays, scoring touchdowns. And I'm a little bit more open to wide receivers that, you know, the more you decrease on the value of a reception, if it goes from 1 PPR to a half PPR, the more valuable those explosive big play receivers are. And to me, A.J. Brown has, for whatever reason, maybe just like a little bit of not a stink on him, but just a little bit of uncertainty. It's almost like there's A.J. Brown fatigue from drafters if we're letting him drop into the third round. I would prefer him. You know, I think he's actually slotted appropriately. I think it's just a product of the running backs being pushed up. I have A.J. Brown over McConkey. I love Ladd McConkey, but I think McConkey's another guy that's like, could McConkey end up with more receptions this year than A.J. Brown? That's possible because I think McConkey is sharing with less prominent wide receivers, whereas you've got Devontae Smith, you've got Saquon Barkley. I think there are more weapons on the Eagles that, you know, A.J. Brown is going to have to share with. 82 receptions last year on 112 targets. That is the mark for Ladd McConkey, and I think he could catch 100 balls this year. Last year, a little bit down in terms of receptions, but that's because he missed games as well. A.J. Brown was 106 receptions on 158 targets the previous season. So that's, who am I kidding? He can be a target hog as well. Last year, missed 4 games, 67 receptions on 97 targets. If I go 67 divided by 13, the per game average there, 5.15, multiply that by 17. So the pace was down for sure. And that's kind of why I had in my head he's not as much of a volume guy. But I think the touchdowns can absolutely be the differentiator there. So, I don't know. Let me know. Would you go A.J. Brown or would you go Ladd McConkey this year? I can't say I've taken a ton of A.J. Brown in mock drafts so far, but I don't think it's a bad price to pay if we're talking early third. Locked up my top quarterback, got my RB1, and then I'm able to get a really compelling receiver despite waiting until round 3 to draft him. I'm excited about that. Quarterbacks